All right. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to be part of your Wednesday today. I'm excited to be able to share about our particular project about how to install a certified Monarch Waystation. And I just want to say, first off, that I've had the opportunity to work with some of our master gardeners here in Warren County, and they have done a fantastic job of helping with our certified Monarch Waystation project, and I could not have done it without them. And so I just want to give them a huge shout out. I know some of them are in attendance at the state Master Gardener Conference today, but I hope that I'm able to highlight specific things that we've done with our particular project here in Warren County. All right, so here's some of our highlights that we're going to touch on today. I've got a little introduction first off, and then we're going to be sharing specifically the importance of Monarch Waystations. Some of you all may have encountered Monarch Waystations in your communities, and I'm going to highlight specifically the ones that we've been able to work on here and how we've been able to share that. We're also going to touch on what are the elements that make up a successful Monarch Waystation. So we're going to talk about site selection, having those right plants that you need, also planning and design of that Monarch Waystation. And then what I have for you all is just a photo journal of our Warren County Extension Master Gardener Monarch Waystation, as well as our pollinator patches that we have here at the Warren County Extension office here in Bowling Green. I'm also going to give you a little bit of a conclusion and provide you with some additional resources. So, you may say, okay, Kristen, why are we concerned with monarch butterflies? Well, if you look, especially like in the news and like in the papers and things like that, there's been a huge spread of concern with monarchs because their milkweed, their habitats are being declining, and that's just simply due to the environment, the development of our environment. Also, it's been due to the widespread use of herbicides that we have here, as far as our crops and gardens, pastures along the roadsides. A lot of those things have been in wild use. And then two, there's some concern that the monarch butterflies may not be around. And so there's been a huge push for helping to save the monarchs. And one of those things that you can specifically do is to build a certified monarch waystation. So a certified monarch waystation is simply a garden or a space that's going to provide the resources that are necessary for monarchs, not only monarchs, but we've also provided a lot of different habitats for our butterflies here, specifically the swallowtail butterfly, and help them produce successive generations and to help sustain their migration pattern. So basically, when you build these certified monarch waystations, what you're doing is you're providing that food source. Specifically for monarchs, it's the milkweed. To be a good host, you have to provide the milkweed. And also, you're providing a nectar source that is going to be available throughout the several months of the year. So they start to come in the spring, throughout the summer, and then even into the fall as that migration makes its way back into Mexico. So where can you add monarch waystations? So monarch waystations really can be added anywhere that you have a space for it. So you can add it to your specific home garden. Maybe you're going to incorporate more of a waystation area around some of your other plants that you have in your garden, pre-existing plants. You can add it to school gardens. I know we've really tried to talk specifically a little bit more with our schools about providing those habitats. I know some of the elementary school and the middle school curriculum, they have wanted to incorporate kind of showing the life cycle of the butterfly. There's also other businesses that you can add this to. We've had an opportunity here in Bowling Green as well to work with the library and also plant some different native plants there. You may have opportunities with your park system. Also, if you're close to a zoo, a nature center, really anywhere that might be having an unused plot of land. So creating a monarch waystation can really be as simple as just incorporating the food source as the milkweed and also adding those other nectar plants to help serve. So really no effort is too small to really have an impact. So the value specifically of a Monarch Way Station, I feel like, is the sustainability piece. So by creating and maintaining our certified Monarch Way Station habitat, you're helping to contribute to monarchs and helping preserve their species, especially for generations to come. I know I have a little girl. She's going to be 5 in October. And anytime that I can help educate her on caterpillars and also getting it to a butterfly stage. It's just really nice. And even for other families like our grandchildren and our great grandchildren, we really need to be purposeful in providing that so that way we can guarantee, especially to have monarchs in the future. So I'm going to transition here about talking specifically about what elements are needed in a certified Monarch way station. So if you look at the monarchwatch.org, some of it can be interpreted in many different ways. It's just really, if you've ever been there to the monarchwatch.org website, there's a lot of different requirements that they provide. Some of them are a little bit wide open. They can, you can take it for a small space, even into a larger space, depending on the size of your garden. But the very first thing that you do want to provide is plant at least 100 square feet. So basically, what you're doing is you're dedicating at least 100 square feet of plants specifically for those monarchs to feed and lay their eggs on. So with a butterfly, that it goes through complete metamorphosis where it has the egg, the larvae, the caterpillars, specifically, it's going to pupate. So you need to provide it a place where it can make its chrysalis, and then it goes into the butterfly stage. So you can split it up if you want to. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, or you can split it up into doable patches. But the first requirement right off the bat is just to at least have 100 square feet for your Monarch Way Station. Number two, about providing a Monarch way station is you want to grow it in the right conditions. So essentially, with this being a butterfly habitat for the monarch butterfly, you want to at least provide it plenty of sunlight, and that preferably is 6 to 8 hours of full sunlight a day. And that just allow those flowers to be able to thrive and those butterflies to really take off as well. So generally, with our habitat where we've had it for several years, and we're going to provide a timeline here in just a little bit of kind of what our project has looked like through the years, our journey. But typically with our butterflies, it takes them a little while to warm up in the morning hours. So generally, prime time for us here that we've noticed with some of our research is between 1 and 4 p.m. So secondly, with your right conditions for your Monarch Way Station, is that you want to provide a place where butterflies love. So milkweed is definitely one of those that we're going to talk about. A lot of these milkweed, they're native to our area, so they don't necessarily have to have the best soils because they're already going to do well for our environment here in Kentucky. But you do need to have an area that's going to be able to, especially during the summer months when it can be tough on plants, when they go through a little bit more drought-like conditions, they'll appreciate a little bit of extra water through a watering source. Okay, so once you provide them the right space and the right conditions, you do want to provide them with a little bit of shelter. So spacing plants in the way station close enough is good for both the adults and the caterpillars to be able to move about. I know sometimes with some of these native plants that we're going to discuss, a lot of times they can grow a little bit tighter than most of some of our other plants that we might talk about on Horticulture Webinar Wednesdays. You don't want to get them too close in the fact that they're going to have a lot of overcrowding. So some of these perennials we're going to talk about, they do get big, especially like Joe Pye weed and ironweed, things like that. After you have them in your garden through the years, you do need to make sure you provide those perennial plants with plenty of space to grow and develop. So just kind of keep that in mind, keep the mature size in the back of your mind. The other thing to think about with a Monarch Way Station is making a sustainable plan. So it's really important to pick out the plants that are going to do well for us here in Kentucky. And so for most of us, we're into a zone 6B to a 7, depending on how you rate on the hardiness zone map. You do want to be mindful about using pesticides as well, especially when you get into the months of the year of, I know especially like during the summer months, we're seeing a lot more caterpillar activity. And then further into the fall, we're starting to see those caterpillars make their chrysalis and then go into the butterfly stage. But really around the month of September, even into October, that is the generation that's going to make it all the way down to Mexico and overwinter there. And then in the spring, their whole role is to come back for next year. So really be mindful of the pesticide usage because, you know, that can be detrimental if you don't factor that in. Now, one of the things I do want to talk about is growing the host with the most. So, whenever you think about going over to somebody's house, you want to make sure that there's food available. For monarchs specifically, we want to make sure that we provide plenty of milkweed to them. So, you can't have a monarch way station without having the milkweed present. So, on monarchwatch.org, it does recommend that you grow at least 10 milkweed plants of one species for a way station. It's really better to have at least 5 each of 2 or more different milkweeds that are native to your region. So the 3 types that we can grow here in Kentucky are butterfly milkweed, common milkweed, and also swamp milkweed. So the butterfly milkweed is pictured at the top. Swamp milkweed is here in the center, and then the common milkweed is here at the bottom. So specifically with all of these 3 that we have present in our Monarch Way Station, we have noticed that the swamp milkweed is the one that our butterflies have flocked to. And that specifically is more of the caterpillars, what they feed on it, and then also they will make their chrysalis on it that we've been able to document through the years, starting in 2021, even into 2022 and to 2023. So still, it's good to have the common milkweed type. The thing to consider with it is that once you have it, it's really going to just go wild. So you have it one year, it could, like we have raised beds with our Monarch Way Station, and there's a lot of milkweed, a common milkweed that have not been as tame to those areas that we want it to stay in. It's gone outside the bed. So kind of keep that in mind as you're planning. And then with the butterfly milkweed type, it's a lot shorter. So it's going to play a lot nicer, especially if you are in an area where you want to keep it nice and compact. And it does do really nice in that area compared to the common milkweed. But again, where we've been able to document some of our successes, it seems like swamp milkweed has been the preferred type of all of the 3. That's been the most preferred. Again, with the swamp milkweed, you want to make sure you provide it with plenty of water. So when you typically get into those summer months, you want to make sure that you do supplement with water. So I wanted to talk next about some of the food choices that you can have. Once you have the milkweed, you want to make sure that you do provide, especially the first year after you get those perennials established, it's really important to provide annuals a part of that. So we have made sure that we have supplemented with the nectar sources with some of these annuals. Dill and parsley have been very, very good for us. We've actually captured some black swallowtail caterpillars. We've actually documented up to like 20 something in during the summer months. So if you can have dill and parsley, I know there's curly parsley and then there's a flat leaf parsley. It doesn't seem to matter with them because we, in separate years, we've had different types. So it doesn't seem to really matter which one. But we have noticed quite a bit of those swallowtails on those particular annuals. Some of the other ones that we've noticed we've had really good luck with is lantana. That really helped get us through that first year. Marigolds have helped us, verbena, and also zinnias. So I know zinnias are fairly easy to manage, and they can also be good for saving from seed from year to year, and it's pretty inexpensive too. But we've noticed hummingbirds with it. We've noticed all sorts of butterflies, a lot of different species of butterflies. So if you can have any type of annual, I would definitely recommend the zinnias and the lantana for the top two, besides the other food source of the dill and parsley. Now, I wanted to talk, I know we could talk days here, hours really, on perennials that work good for a Monarch Way Station. The key here is being native. We have planted, I think it's over 300 different plants of natives here in our Monarch Way Station here in Bowling Green, and that's been starting since 2021 until current. We're getting ready to install some more because we're going to be adding some other raised beds to our project. But this is just kind of a breakdown of some of those. And if you're interested, I can send you more of the full list. But we've got Joe Pieweed, which helps serve as our windbreak on our fence line, which I'm going to show you. We've got ironweed, purple coneflower. We've got some aromatic aster, which is gorgeous for the fall months of the year. We've got some bee balm or monarda that looks really good starting out in the spring of the year. Golden Alexander is one that works good after that flush of bee balm kind of goes by. We've also got showy goldenrod, coreopsis, shrubbies, St. John's wort. We've got New Jersey tea, a rattlesnake master, which we just added that in our pollinator patches in 2023. We've also got garlic chives, salvia, slender mountain mint, foxglove, beard's tongue, and we've got two different varieties of phloxes with our Monarch Waystation here. So, like I said, this is just capturing the top 16 or so, but we do have a lot more that we've got labeled. Okay, so I wanted to show you all kind of a photo journal that we've kept here of our Warren County Extension Master Gardener Monarch Waystation project. So as you know, COVID hit 2020. So whenever we did the State Master Gardener educational meetings online with that class that went through that program, their project specifically was to design a certified Monarch Waystation. So we put forth, I just want to mention this, we had them design their specific certified Monarch Waystation or butterfly habitat, and then we did a contest. So once we did the contest, we looked through all of the applications or all of the garden plans, and we narrowed it down to basically what we wanted to install in 7 raised beds. So that's kind of how our initial process started. There was some planning that happened in that window, and then we were able to start our project in the spring of 2021, which I'm going to show you specifically some of that process. So in this, in the beginning, what we did, we have Bermuda grass here at our location at the extension office. Also, in 2019, we first moved into our facility here. So our soils weren't exactly perfect. So we decided to go the raised bed garden route. So in order to get ready for that process, we had to kill off some Bermuda grass in the beginning before, we had any basic sort of caterpillar activity. So here you can kind of see how they marked off and they've kind of killed off some of that Bermuda grass before we ever started adding plants. So that shows that process. We went with a Western mix, and so that is sold through Simply Mulch here in Bowling Green. They came and dumped a whole big truckload of that Western mix, and then so a lot of our master gardeners took wheelbarrows and shovels and added those into our 7 raised beds. And then this other photo here shows our crew after we basically got everything installed. So the raised bed frames went before obviously the soil went in, and we also, to help keep those connected, we did some I'm trying to think of the word, but we had the brackets on the corners just to hold those together because there is some bowing and things like that that does occur after you have some rainfall and some sunlight and things like that. So we secured those with brackets, added the soil, and then next we were able to do planting. So the planting was over the course of 3 different dates according to what volunteers that we had available, and we installed basically all of the plans that we had in that Monarch Waystation. If you'll notice in this photo right here in the center, this is the center bed of our Monarch Way Station for that first year. We installed a solar water fountain feature, and that was provided by one of our master gardeners that also had a certified Monarch Way Station on her property. And so what we did is that it was operated by a solar panel that we put out beside it, and it just helped keep that steady flow of water. So that's one of the other components with your butterfly garden habitats is if you can provide some water source to them, that will also be very helpful. So once we did all the installation in May of 2021, we went through the process of registering and certifying our Monarch Waystation gardens. So if you'll notice here, you can see we've got two things with registering and certifying. So we got our sign, which is through the monarchwatch.org, and we also got our certificate. So this is kind of what that looks like after you go through the process. There's just some information that you have to fill out according to what best fits your Monarch Way Station. And then once it does get to you in the certificate and the metal form, you're able to keep that with you for records. And then you also get listed on the map just to kind of shows where all the certified Monarch Way Stations are at throughout the U.S. I wanted to say here that whenever our building got built here, we saw that there was a lot of wind coming through on the west side of our property. So what we did next was we installed a fence, and along the fence, we basically prepped the soil and got it ready for adding a windbreak, which a lot of our Joe Pye weed went. We had some black-eyed Susans that got planted along through there, but we had to do this in different stages because we couldn't just do it all at once because our soil was so hard. Again, this is probably more of the preferred habitat for a lot of our native plants, but all along through there, we were adding these native plants again to help serve as our windbreak because we were just getting so much wind that the actual butterflies couldn't rest on some of the nectar sources. So whenever you install these plants, it's really important to make sure that you water that. Again, we've said, that was probably the worst during the summer months, but once they did get established, it was a little bit easier to maintain. After we did this, we noticed in August, if you look at the center photo on our shrubby St. John's wort, we found a chrysalis. And that was the first one we found after a lot of our research and a lot of the steps that we went through in the first year. So that was really exciting to be able to see that. Further on from there in the fall, we put down some more fabric and added some more mulch just to help us with, again, the Bermuda grass, that because we know we have an issue where we're at. And then because we were able to find the first chrysalis, we were able to watch the process. And I don't know if you've ever seen the full process of seeing it like actually hatch out of the chrysalis, but it was really fascinating. One of the Master Gardener volunteers lives really close to our office here, and she was walking past it and she sent me a photo and she said, "Look what I found. It actually had emerged from the actual chrysalis." And so we went out there after she sent that to me, and it took several hours for that monarch to be able to dry off before it ever took flight. But we discovered in October 1st that it was a female, and we were really glad with some of our efforts there. This kind of shows you just a little bit of our fall cleanup. Again, you can really see the lantana color coming through along with the fence line that we had added. Now, getting into 2022, I wanted to kind of show you this is starting year 2 of our project. You can kind of see some of our color coming in from a lot of our different perennials because it does take them a little while longer to get established. So we've got Golden Alexander here. We've also got some phlox, some rose vervain that were coming in kind of in the months of April. We do some different spring work days with our Monarch Waystation project, just so that way we can keep getting hours for our volunteers. So you can see once we went through this spring project in 2022, we put more landscape fabric down in between our beds to help not have weeds. And then we also added some black mulch along the fence line. I should have mentioned that we put some pine bark nugget mulch because we liked the look of that on the actual fence line than we did in between the beds. And mulch is kind of expensive, so we did a little bit of a price cut there. Here, we found out from that first year we needed more milkweed, so Kathy installed some more milkweed into the beds that were next door. So we did have annual flower garden trials that were a part of our project, and then that got discontinued. So we just used those beds that we had set aside for it to make more room for milkweed and some other pollinator plants. Here you can see in this center photo what our bee balm looks like when it's in bloom. It's really, really gorgeous. We have some New Jersey tea. And then later in the fall of that year, in August 29th, 2022, we found our second monarch butterfly chrysalis, and that was on our witch hazel. So you really do need to provide some sort of woody stem, like a shrub tree or some type of plant for them to actually make their chrysalises on. We also observed, I've never really seen this process either, but in September, we watched a female laying a lot of eggs on the undersides of our swamp milkweed. That was really neat to get that photo documented. Again, we had a lot of black swallowtail caterpillars with a lot of our parsley, but then they went to the coneflower, not the coneflower, they went to the black-eyed Susans and made their chrysalises on them. I will say it was kind of sad to notice some of our chrysalis that we did notice in 2022 didn't all the way make it. So you do kind of have to kind of shed a tear because things like that just happen in nature. You can't save them all. But we did run into one that got hit by a tonic fly. But it's really interesting to watch the process. We were able to see monarch caterpillars go into the J right before they made the chrysalis. One of the other unique projects we were able to do is to showcase our Monarch Waystation in the fall, and we offer different gardening tours to them. So here we offered it during Tree Week of 2022. We gave away free tree seedlings that were distributed to us, and we had that offered on 3 separate occasions. On that one Friday afternoon offering, we had some native plant nurseries that came. Ironweed out of Columbia. She's now in Waddy, Kentucky. And then we also had Shannon Trimboli from Busy Bee Nursery and Consulting. She set up as a part of our garden tours. And that was nice for people if they were really interested in what they saw, then they were able to obtain that and take that home for planting because this was done in the fall months of the year. Continuing into 2023, you can kind of see the seasonal color coming through starting in year 3. We had a spring work day. We added some new people to our bunch because we did another Master Gardener educational class. So we were able to add new volunteers to it. Again, this kind of shows you in 2023, the annual flower garden trials that we had, we've added now pollinator patches. And so we wanted to showcase more native plants and kind of what they look like because here in Bowling Green, we're seeing a lot of growth and development. And we wanted to show people what these native plants look like and how they could look really attractive and interesting, especially if you go to needing or wanting to attract more butterflies and bees and hummingbirds and things like that. So this kind of shows you what that looks like. We had to replace some raised bed frames because they did some bowing and things like that. We added some soil amendments, added more additional plants according to that class's design. So their thoughts and things were considered. We also did a cover crop along that fence line that used to be that's now going to be the new pollinator garden patch because we had so much trouble with the last one. We wanted to add some different soil amendments to that. So we did that, and then we turned that under in the fall. So that kind of shows you. One of the things I wanted to show you here is that we were getting a lot of people because we've had some apartments go in where our gardens are at. We've added some native plant signage to explain what all is involved with native plants. And what I liked about this is we obtained them from the Monarch joint venture. I got 5 signs for about $125. They also have QR codes listed on them. So that way if you're not specifically out there leading a tour, they can use their phone and go to those QR codes. There's one here that shows the importance of milkweed. Here you can, I wanted to just mention this in the fact that 2023, we saw a late migration period of monarchs come through. And I can't remember if that year was a little bit warmer, but we started October the 30th. We saw one of our caterpillars come through, and then I actually took it home with me, put it into this butterfly habitat. It basically looks like a little hamper, but I took it home because it got down really cold, and then I released it on November the 3rd. So that was really an interesting fact. We had a male and a female there. Here you can kind of see what the fence line looks like once we added additional plants. This in 2024 just kind of shows you what inventory that we have to do from year to year. So the bee balm in this first photo likes to take over. So we had to reduce that number down. A lot of them had to, divide that out. The Gaillardia actually had sowed itself in between the beds. So we were actually having to go through and, put those into seed trays. And again, we had another work day during that time frame. I wanted to show this. We've added some native bee pollinator habitats on the fence line for our solitary bees. We also here just recently in July, we've added an arbor to serve as our focal point for our backdrop. This kind of shows you what the summer seasonal color looks like with some of our perennials. So here's the Joe Pye weed. We have slender mountain mint, which is that white perennial. We have giant purple hyssop and a rattlesnake master. It's a little bit taller, so it gives you some height. And then there's tall coreopsis here, as well as the Missouri type of ironweed that we have. One of the projects that we did this year that I was really glad that one of our master gardeners mentioned to me is that we offered in May a fairy garden tour. And this involved both children and adults. And it was so fascinating at the amount of kids that we had come through that wanted to learn specifically more about fairy gardens. And so a lot of our master gardeners that helped serve on that event, it was held on a Sunday. It was done with in conjunction in the afternoon with some other garden tours. So we were number one on the list. So they started with us, ideally, and then they went to these other tours throughout the day, and then they ended up at Lost River Cave. But we had a little scavenger hunt for the kids. They had to go find the sleeping fairy. People really enjoyed it. WBKO from our TV station here in Bowling Green came out and did an interview. And then we also had some master gardeners that dressed up like fairies. So it was really interesting. We've never done that before, but we're planning on doing it again this year for 2025. So just to conclude some of the things that we've noticed with our certified Monarch Waystation and pollinator patches, if you can do your research ahead of time, monarchwatch.org has some great information. If you can plan the Monarch Waystation out on paper, making sure you have the host plants that you want to attract those specific butterflies, as well as the nectar plants to help scatter from spring, summer into the fall. We do encourage natives because we have noticed a big benefit with those native plants. They seem to do well and attract the most native pollinators. Make sure you plant them, take care of them, maintain them, and it's really good to keep a garden journal so that way you can document some of the successes and things that you might want to change. So here's some additional resources if you want to check them out. Monarchwatch.org, we've mentioned that a few times. They've got some different information. They've also got information for materials if you decide to do like maybe posters or brochures, things of that nature. They also have the part there listed on how to certify and register. Through the University of Kentucky, we always give out the Attracting Butterflies publication with native plants, and that was put out by our late wildlife specialist, Thomas Barnes. I've got the link listed there. And then this bottom resource, there was a graduate student, Adam Baker, that came. And so this bottom link will give you the research that had been done on some of the Monarch Waystations. And one of those things that we did with ours after reading this article is that we put the swamp milkweed on the perimeter. And so because it's a taller milkweed species, it seemed like that helped bring in more of our monarch butterflies. So that was one of the takeaways we took from that research project. I hope that you all have found this interesting. I know I went over just a little bit on time, but if you do have any specific questions you want to reach out, I'd be happy to assist. If you want to come out and do a tour, I know our Warren County Extension Master Gardeners would love that opportunity. But anyway, that's some of my information.